And what is up, everybody? This is Robbie One Kenobi, and I'd like to welcome you to a little something that I am calling Wrestling Wednesday Chat. If you guys remember, a few weeks ago, I did a Wrestling Wednesday recap, where I basically recapped the events of NXT and the premiere of the Cruiserweight Classic for that Wednesday. This Wednesday, I thought I would just come up here, and since it's Wrestling Wednesday, I thought I'd talk about some of the highlights from both Raw and SmackDown, the post-SummerSlam episodes of Raw and SmackDown. I'm really going to try and keep this video under 30 minutes, guys. I'm not going to go through the entire, I'm not going to go through both shows in their entirety. I'm just going to talk about the main highlights from both shows and just give you my thoughts on the shows overall. So, and if all goes well with this, maybe I'll keep it going as a series, but it depends on if I'll have the time on any of these upcoming Wednesdays. But without any further ado, let's get right down to the chat. Let's start off with Monday Night Raw, which I thought was a good, solid show overall. I actually thought both Raw and SmackDown this week were good, solid shows. We'll start off the Raw highlights with a very somber highlight. This is actually how the show kicked off, with Finn Bálor relinquishing his newly won WWE Universal Championship less than 24 hours after he won it at SummerSlam. News broke earlier Monday morning that Bálor may have to relinquish the championship due to his shoulder injury. I forget exactly what the injury was classified as, but he suffered a tear in his shoulder as a result of the buckle bomb that he took from Seth Rollins, well, the barricade bomb really that he took from Seth Rollins at SummerSlam early on in their Universal Championship match. And the crazy thing is, you know, Balor's shoulder was pretty much dislocated, and he had to he popped it back into the socket and still managed to wrestle the match he had with Seth, which I thought was great. Bálor came out, started Raw, and he cut a heartfelt promo thanking the WWE and the WWE Universe for the opportunities that he's received, including the opportunity to win the Universal Championship and forever be recognized as the very first WWE Universal Champion. Say what you will about how that belt looks, but I was happy that Finn won. He deserved it. It's just a damn shame that he has to relinquish the championship less than 24 hours after he won it. He's going to be out of action for 6 months. I know he had the surgery. I believe he had the surgery yesterday, and it went successful. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Finn Bálor come back when he does. He should be back in time for WrestleMania. And I just want to send my get well wishes to Finn Bálor. I think it really sucks that he just arrived on the main roster. He was drafted from NXT. He was the very first draft pick from NXT during the draft. He had a hell of a debut, you know, winning the Fatal 4-Way, beating Roman Reigns to ultimately get the shot at Seth Rollins to fight for the inaugural Universal Championship. He won it in what I thought was a great match, and, you know, less than 24 hours later, he has to relinquish the championship, which really sucks. I think it's a big blow to Monday Night Raw, losing someone of Bálor's star power and his caliber. So, of course, with Bálor having to relinquish the championship, there is now the titles vacant. So, Seth Rollins then came out and, you know, pretty much was telling Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley that he should receive the championship because with Finn injured, that means he never lost. But then out came Sami Zayn and Enzo and Big Cass and Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. And ultimately, Mick Foley decided to set up a series of matches in which the winners would go on to next Monday's Raw from Houston and face each other in a Fatal 4-Way to crown the new WWE Universal Champion. The winners of those 4 matches were Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Big Cass, surprisingly, because he faced Rusev, and I honestly thought he was going to lose, but Rusev took the loss via countout, so Big Cass advanced, and Roman Reigns. So this Fatal 4-Way is pretty stacked. I am looking forward to it. I'm happy for Big Cass to get a huge main event opportunity like this. Obviously, he's not going to win the championship, but I really hope he has a standout breakout moment on his own in a match of this caliber. As far as who I think is going to win the Universal Championship, I think it'll most likely be Seth Rollins, but I would love for it to be Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens deserves is deserving of being world champion in the WWE. So I personally would love for WWE to just really shock us and surprise us and give the belt to Kevin Owens. Maybe have him take advantage of a move that Seth Rollins did and win the championship, and then you can do a Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens Universal Championship feud for Clash of Champions and whatever the pay-per-view is going to be in October for Raw. But I most likely believe that Rollins will win the championship and either face, most likely face Roman Reigns at Clash of Champions. But I would love for Kevin Owens to win. You can do a Kevin Owens Seth Rollins feud for a couple months for the championship. That would be great. But for now, my prediction is Seth Rollins. I just got a feeling they're going to give it to him. And, you know, if he's still the champion by the time Finn returns, you can keep their feud going. I like the whole idea of, you know, Seth Rollins and Finn Bálor, they achieved the same goals, but Seth did everything first. And then, you know, he, yes, will be the second ever WWE Universal Champion, but he can say he's the first Universal Champion not to get injured, something like that, to rub salt in Bálor's wounds. But as far as a prediction for who I think walks out, I think it'll be Seth Rollins for the most part. But like I said, I would love for Kevin Owens to win the championship, and then you could do Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins for a couple months, have them feud over the championship. Now, undoubtedly, the biggest highlight of Monday Night Raw was the official main roster debut of Bayley after all the speculation and after all her time in NXT and the question of when she would finally debut. Bayley finally made her main roster debut, and she got a wicked pop from the crowd in Barclays Center. You know, the Barclays Center is pretty much becoming Bayley's second home. I mean, that's where she won the Women's Championship from Sasha Banks at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn last year in that incredible women's wrestling match, the greatest women's wrestling match in WWE history. And then, of course, Saturday night, she had that really good, that very good women's wrestling match with Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship. And yes, she didn't win, but the crowd, the NXT universe, showered her with "Thank you, Bayley" chants. And now Bayley is officially on the main roster. Basically, how everything went down was Charlotte came out to brag and boast about her being the new women's champion, being a two-time women's champion, having gotten rid of Sasha Banks, and saying, "Sasha, if you do decide to return from your injury after you've recovered, do us all a favor and don't show up. Don't even bother coming back." And I honestly thought when Charlotte's music hit and she was leaving the ring with Dana Brooke, I honestly thought that was the end of the segment. But then out came Mick Foley, and at first I was like, okay, good, it's the end of the segment, only because the main reason I didn't want Bayley debuting on the main roster is because I'm concerned WWE is going to screw her over. I'm concerned they're going to screw her up, and that's just going to leave a very bad taste in a lot of fans' mouths. Bayley is undoubtedly the most beloved person in that company, the most beloved wrestler on any roster, be it WWE or NXT, and she could definitely bring in a lot of bank for WWE. Her merchandise sales will go through the roof. I mean, I really don't want the WWE. I want WWE to really treat Bayley like she deserves to be treated. Make her your top women's wrestler, or have her and Sasha be the two prime women's wrestlers who are like the Trish and Lita, so to speak, of their generation. But Mick Foley came out and said that he has just signed the hottest free agent in the women's division, and people pretty much figured out who it was. And when Bayley came out, she got a wicked reaction from the crowd, from her Barclay home. You could say it was a Barclay homecoming, so to speak, for Bayley, because she's made that arena. She has made history in that arena, whether it was good or bad. And by bad, I don't really mean bad, but you know what I mean. Like, even though she lost to Asuka, she got an NXT farewell deserving of someone of her caliber. So she said she wants to be the women's champion, and she's going after Charlotte, and she's ready for a fight. And Charlotte said she's not ready for a fight, but Dana Brooke is always ready for a fight. That's something that she taught her. Bayley had her first official match on the main roster and defeated Dana Brooke in a solid women's match. You know, eventually it's going to be Bayley versus Charlotte. It will most likely happen at Clash of Champions. I don't know if they're going to give Bayley the belt right away, but I feel like Bayley should win the championship by the end of the year, and then eventually you can build toward the major high-profile Bayley Sasha Women's Championship match at either Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. And honestly, I would prefer WrestleMania because they had, you know, their Brooklyn Classic on that stage, a stage the caliber of TakeOver Brooklyn inside the Barclays Center. Why not save their biggest match to date for a stage caliber of WrestleMania? So welcome to the main roster, Bayley. Very happy to have you on there. And WWE, like I said, do not screw Bayley over. You will live to regret it if you do. She is the most beloved person on your roster. Treat her well. Treat her like she deserves to be treated. And yeah, you do everything right, push and build her the right way, you will have a star for the ages with regards to your women's division. It was also announced on Raw that the Cruiserweight division is going to debut on September 19th. Now, I am looking forward to seeing the Cruiserweights on Raw, but once again, I have concern that the division may not be showcased properly. I really hope, you know, when you go and look at all the great matches we've seen so far, great performances, great talent we've seen throughout the Cruiserweight division, not the Cruiserweight division, throughout the Cruiserweight Classic, you really hope that the Cruiserweight division does well on Raw with all the talent they're going to be getting. So I'm excited for the Cruiserweight division to debut. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Cruiserweight Championship looks like. I hope it is not a case of they take the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and they paint it a different color and they just slap on the word Cruiserweight Champion on it. Bring back the old Cruiserweight Championship or make a new Cruiserweight Championship, but don't just be copying and pasting on, you know, onto other championships, you know what I'm saying, that already exist. But I am that guys like Noam Dar and Rich Swann, excuse me, will be on Raw. I hope Gargano and Ciampa, you know, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa get called up to Raw as well. Or if they don't necessarily go to the Cruiserweight division, if they go to SmackDown, that would be great for the tag team division. But like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the Cruiserweights in action on Raw. I just hope they get the right amount of time for matches, that the belt is a different belt, and that the division, just like I said, gets the proper time to be showcased, and that all the Cruiserweights go on to do big things, and that certain Cruiserweights get a chance to break the mold and go on to fight for like U.S. title, tag titles, and maybe even eventually the WWE Universal Championship. And the last highlight from Monday Night Raw was the Dudley Boyz saying goodbye to the WWE. When this news broke, guys, I immediately thought to myself, okay, Bubba Ray is going to turn on Devon because they've been having miscommunications lately that have been costing them matches. And I was just expecting Bubba to turn on Devon, and the whole time I'm just watching it, just waiting and waiting and waiting for Bubba Ray to make his move, and it never happened. They cut a promo thanking the WWE Universe for the 20+ years they've been in the business. They talked about how they revolutionized the tag team division in the TLC matches with, you know, Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys. And as they were giving their speech, you know, the Shining Stars came out and offered them a ticket to Puerto Rico, and the Dudley Boyz just put a beat down on them and was going to put them through the table. And then out came Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, who just laid out the Dudley Boyz, laid out Bubba on the outside with a Magic Killer, and then put Devon through a table with the Magic Killer. So I don't know if the Dudley Boyz are actually leaving the WWE, because based on what I saw, I mean, if we get a match between Gallows and Anderson and the Dudley Boyz at Clash of Champions, if it's like a hard-hitting match, I'd be down for it. But then again, I also want to see Gallows and Anderson finally knock off the New Day and win the tag team championships. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, guys, you know, I'm not trying to take away from the Dudley Boyz speech, but like watching it, there was just something in me. I was just waiting for the moment when Bubba Ray was going to turn on Devon and just, you know, lay him out and then maybe resort to his Bully Ray character, and they were going to push him as a single star, but it didn't happen. So if this is indeed the Dudley Boyz farewell from WWE, well, thank you again, Bubba and Devon, for all the memories. You could have had, you know, you said it yourselves this year, you've had good and bad moments. But thank you again for your return to the WWE and for the good moments that we did have during your run. And, of course, guys, it's obvious these two are Hall of Fame bound, because they're undoubtedly one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tag team in professional wrestling history. And I guess I can end it with hashtag thank you Dudleys. We'll see where they go from there. Maybe they will have a match, like I said, with Gallows and Anderson at Clash of Champions. But if this is the Dudley Boyz farewell, thank you again, Dudley Boyz, for the memories. Your run this last year could have been better, but you know, it's always good to see you, and thank you again for the memories. Now moving on to SmackDown, which, like I said, was also a good solid show for the most part, and very enjoyable, very easy to sit through because it's 2 hours. You know, it doesn't lag like that third hour of Raw. We kicked the show off with the new SmackDown Tag Team and Women's Championships being revealed. And I remember saying these belts just better look different. They better not be the same belts on Raw, which is different color schemes. And wouldn't you know it, it was the same belts. It was the Raw Tag Team Championships with a blue strap and silver plates. And then the SmackDown Women's Championship is basically the Women's Championship with a blue background. Not really a fan of the Women's Championship because I would have liked something different, but I will give WWE credit for this. I do like how the SmackDown Tag Team titles look with the blue strap and the silver plates. They don't look, you know, I like them better than the ones on Raw because the ones on Raw look like those chocolate-covered coins that you get for Easter. So I do like the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The Women's Championship is what it is. But I just really do. I really hate the fact that WWE is just taking an existing title and they're just swapping the color schemes or just taking or adding different names to the plates. Like, what I like the most about the brand split back in the day was that each brand had separate titles. And those separate titles gave the brand a separate identity. You know, the titles looked different, they were colorful, and that's what distinguished each brand. Now it's just like WWE is taking an existing belt and they're taking off one name and they're putting another name on it, or they're changing the color scheme, and I just don't like that. That's just lazy. I want WWE to come up with more colorful, with different looking belts. I want the belts to look different, unique. I'm fine with the SmackDown Tag Team Championships because I think those look more credible than the ones on Raw. Women's Championship, hopefully that'll go through a revamp, give it a completely different look or whatnot. But, you know, all the titles, like my good friend Zach Brown said, this isn't the UFC where all the titles can look the same. This is the WWE. You have different divisions. You have, you know, you want the titles to look different. You want them to distinguish the brands. That's all I'm going to say. So I hope in the future we get new looking belts for both brands. Like I said, I'm fine with the Tag Team Championships on SmackDown, how those look. The Women's Championship, it's basically, like I said, the Raw Women's Championship with just a blue background. It doesn't look bad. It looks better than that freaking Universal Championship, but I just want I want a new fresh look for the titles. That's it. So Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon announced that a SmackDown Tag Team tournament would take place to crown new tag team champions, and the finals of that tournament would take place at Backlash. So in the first round match of the tournament, the Usos defeated the Ascension, and then in the second first round match of the tournament, American Alpha defeated Breezango in a very good, solid, competitive match. Heath Slater during the Tag Team Championship reveal came out, and he's been doing really well with this whole free agent gimmick. I got to give it to him. So Heath Slater comes out and says he wants to be a part of the Tag Team Championship tournament. Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon say, well, if you find a partner and you and that partner win the titles and win the tournament overall, then you'll be granted a SmackDown Live contract. And in the end, Heath Slater did end up finding a partner. It was Rhino after he had numerous failed attempts to find a partner. I honestly thought maybe he would find Kurt Hawkins because they're promoting Kurt Hawkins' return to SmackDown soon. But Heath Slater and Rhino, I want to see how far they go. If they actually win the championships, I'll be fine with that because, one, it's unexpected, and two, it would give Heath Slater a SmackDown contract, and we get to see what he would do on the blue brand. So I'm very interested in seeing what happens with Slater in this tournament. And now that he's found a partner, there's going to be one more team brought in for this tournament. So the Hype Bros and the Vaudevillains are going to have a first-round match, and then Rhino and Heath Slater will have a first-round match against a new team that that Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon will bring in, and that leads me to believe they're probably going to get a tag team from NXT, and I have to believe it would be Gargano and Ciampa. And if it is Gargano and Ciampa, that would be crazy. But then again, I don't see them coming up that early, only because I think they're going to most likely win the tag team championships on NXT soon, and then the Revival gets called up. So we'll see how this tag team tournament plays out, but I am looking forward to it. I got to believe American Alpha is going to win, but like I said, if Rhino and Heath Slater manage to make it to the finals, I would not be surprised if they end up winning. And then Slater gets his SmackDown Live contract. So we'll see what happens with that. As far as the Women's Championship is concerned, Shane McMahon announced there will be a six-pack challenge at Backlash. It'll be Becky Lynch versus Naomi versus Alexa Bliss versus Natalya versus Carmella versus Nikki Bella. I am totally fine with that. It's something new. It's something fresh instead of doing a tournament. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens at Backlash with this six-pack challenge. Like I was telling my good friend Brandon during our Robbie and Brandon review Tony Hawk video, I think Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss are the two top contenders to win the championship, but I really think Becky Lynch deserves that championship more because she's a dark horse, she's a workhorse, and really you've established Sasha and Charlotte on Raw as the top women's champions. I think it's now time that you establish Becky as the top woman on SmackDown, especially with Bayley going to Raw, Nikki Bella going to SmackDown. I really don't see Natty or Nikki Bella needing the championship right now. I don't see Naomi winning it now, but I could see her winning in the future. I think Naomi's a little underrated, but excuse me, yeah, I really think Becky Lynch could benefit big time from winning this. If Alexa Bliss wins it, I'm fine with that because I like Alexa as well, and I think she and Becky are the two new faces that need to be established on SmackDown. You know, if Becky wins or if Alexa wins at Backlash and they feud for a couple months, and then at Survivor Series Becky gets that satisfying win and becomes women's champion, I'll be totally fine with it. So I am looking forward to the remainder of the SmackDown Tag Team Championship Tournament. Looking forward to the six-pack challenge at Backlash for the Women's Championship. And I think the Women's Championship or the Women's Division on SmackDown is starting to finally get some leverage. If only they got Paige, then I think their SmackDown Women's Division would be set. But we will see where things go from there. Maybe call up Billie Kay to SmackDown. But like I said, I'm looking forward to the two tournaments. Well, the Tag Team Tournament and the six-pack challenge to ultimately crown new and first ever SmackDown Tag Team and Women's Champions. Now, speaking of the Women's Division, there's one women's wrestler I didn't mention with regards to title contention, and that was Carmella. Carmella was supposed to have a match with Nikki Bella, who was going to make her SmackDown Live debut. Renee Young got into the ring and interviewed Nikki, asking her how she felt to be back. And then Carmella just unleashed a furious attack on Nikki Bella, put a beat down on Nikki Bella, and in the end, she hit Nikki with the Bella Buster. And that was pretty brash, but that was also pretty damn cool. I like Carmella. It looks like she's turning heel because she didn't stop her attack there on SmackDown. When Nikki was a guest on Talking Smack last night, and I didn't watch Talking Smack, I didn't watch this segment on Talking Smack, but I did find out from YouTube that that Carmella attacked Nikki Bella again. So it looks like we're going to get a Nikki Bella-Carmella feud, which I think Carmella can benefit from. I was surprised that she got called up as soon as she did to the main roster because I thought they were going to build her as an NXT Women's Champion by the end of the year, and then maybe next year they call her up to the main roster. So working with someone like Nikki is beneficial for Carmella. I am looking forward to it. And yeah, I just like seeing this mean streak from Carmella. I like seeing this aggressive side. And I think that also explains why she's not coming out and doing her usual intro on the mic, because she used to do that all the time, and she's good at it. But for the past couple weeks, she hasn't come out with the mic and done her usual intro, like Enzo and Cass do on Raw, but I guess this is why they took the mic away from her, because she is good on the mic, but I guess it's to ultimately build her as a heel. And it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. But I like Carmella. I think she can do good things on the SmackDown Women's Division. And I think, like I said, putting her over against Nikki Bella is the best way to go, having beaten Natalya. So I like this mean streak. I like this heel turn, if you want to call it that. And I just look forward to seeing where things go between Carmella and Nikki Bella. Also on SmackDown, we heard from Randy Orton. And this was the first time we heard from him following the controversial ending to his match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, where, of course, he was busted open legit and he lost via TKO. He came out and he was talking about how he would have preferred that he lost on his own accord rather than having the match stop. He knew what he was getting himself into fighting Brock Lesnar, but he didn't care that his face was a bloody mess. He just wanted to fight Brock Lesnar and go out on his own shield. And then with that said, out came Bray Wyatt, who cut another really good promo. You know, Bray Wyatt is one of the best on the mic. He came out and said that Randy Orton is a mere man, but Bray Wyatt is not a mere man. He is a god, and he'll find out that gods cannot fall. Gods are invincible. And it looks like we're going to get a Bray Wyatt-Randy Orton feud in the future, most likely culminating in a match at Backlash. I'm totally for that match. Funny thing is, I honestly would have preferred that match be on a bigger stage like SummerSlam, because when you think about it, Bray Wyatt was not featured on the SummerSlam card at all. And if you guys remember, Randy has some history with the Wyatt family. He fought, you know, he had a feud with them last fall, and then that feud came to an end when he got injured, and he had to have shoulder surgery, and he had to be out, you know, for 9 months. So a match between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, I'm totally for. I think they can go up there and have a really good to great match. And I think they can have a really good to great feud for the next few months. I just hope that Bray Wyatt eventually wins the WWE World Championship, because it still baffles me to this day how this guy has only had one title shot within 3 years of being on the main roster. I don't understand it. Like I said, it baffles me. But it looks like we're going to get Orton versus Wyatt at Backlash, and that match added to the card along with the main event is making Backlash out to be a really good card for what it is so far. So speaking of the Backlash main event, that was set last night on SmackDown as well. It will be Dean Ambrose defending the WWE World Championship against AJ Styles. At the start of the show, AJ Styles came into a locker room proclaiming himself the new face that runs the place after beating John Cena, of course. And then he got into Dolph Ziggler's face, calling Dolph a loser. Dolph headbutted AJ, and the two got into a brawl backstage. They got into another brawl during the intro, or not the intro, but during the introduction of the SmackDown Tag Team and Women's Championships, when AJ came out and said, like, yo, I beat the face that runs the place. You guys aren't giving me my credit again. You're all talking about tag titles and women's titles. And then Dolph Ziggler came out and they brawled again. And then AJ came out and cut another promo talking about how he beat John Cena, and he's getting really good with his promos as a heel. And Ziggler came out and they brawled yet again. So Daniel Bryan said it was not going to happen. They were not going to keep tearing that show apart with this brawl. So they had a match on SmackDown with the stakes being high. If AJ Styles won, he would get a one-on-one match with Dean Ambrose for the World Championship at Backlash. But if Dolph Ziggler won, the match would be a triple threat match. Now, the only thing that I didn't really agree with, like, that I didn't like, you call it nitpicking, it's just a little thing, is that Daniel Bryan pretty much said one way or another, AJ Styles is guaranteed a title shot whether Dolph Ziggler wins or not. You would think, to make it more logical, that he would say if AJ Styles wins, AJ Styles is #1 contender for the WWE World Championship at Backlash. If Dolph Ziggler wins, Dolph gets a one-on-one rematch with Ambrose for the championship to make it a little more suspenseful. But then again, I was thinking to myself, well, if they're going to do it like a triple threat match, then, you know, you don't think immediately, oh, AJ's gonna win. You know, there's a chance Dolph could win, and then it becomes a triple threat match. But in the end, AJ Styles won in a good main event for the most part, and he will go on to face Dean Ambrose, like I said, for the WWE World Championship. I'm looking forward to this match. I think the right move is to give AJ Styles a championship, have him and Ambrose feud for a couple months, and then at Survivor Series, maybe you do AJ Styles, John Cena one more time, or you can have AJ Styles go up against maybe Randy Orton, or maybe you do a trade and you do AJ Styles versus Cesaro or AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to the main event of Backlash. And like I said, only 4 matches have been announced, but this card is looking pretty stacked for the most part. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And lastly, guys, to wrap up this video, because I know I just went over the 30-minute mark. The last thing I want to talk about is the talked about Miz shoot promo from Talking Smack. Basically what happened was Daniel Bryan was on the show talking to Renee Young, and then the Miz interrupted them, and Daniel was talking about how the Miz wrestled in this cowardly style, and the Miz went off on Daniel Bryan. He was legit pissed. He went off on Daniel Bryan and was talking about, like, you know, you say that you are going to come back and you're going to reclaim the Intercontinental Championship, but you didn't, Daniel. You're talking about how I'm a coward, but I'm in that ring day in and day out busting my ass. I've never gotten injured, and look at you. You're talking about, oh, you're coming back for the people, this and that, and you lied to him, Daniel. It was just, you could really feel the Miz's passion in this promo. I've never been the biggest Miz fan, but I really thought he did a damn fine job with that promo. I mean, you could just really feel his anger, his passion, everything. I mean, Daniel Bryan walked off set, and Miz just kept going. It was just this crazy, crazy segment. You know, it was most likely a planned shoot promo, but honestly, with how incensed the Miz was, how frustrated he was, how disrespected he felt, it felt like a real shoot promo. So I'm interested in seeing if they make this into an angle or not. But whether that's the case or not, like I said, I got to give the Miz a ton of kudos and a ton of credit for that promo. You can just really feel his passion. It was just like, I mean, he went off, like I said, on Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan at one point walked off. It was just crazy. I mean, we'll see where this leads to here, but I want to talk about it because everybody's, you know, been talking about it on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. It was a crazy segment. If this leads to something big for the Miz, well, good for him. But you know, we'll see. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Miz fan, but I got to give him credit for how well he was in that shoe promo. So that'll do it, guys, for Wrestling Wednesday chat for today, August 24th, 2016. Like I said, guys, if I'm available to do more of these videos on Wednesdays, I will maybe make a series out of them. But thanks as always for watching and listening. I'm sorry that it's gone a little over the 30-minute mark. I wanted to try to keep it under 30 minutes or at 30 minutes exact. But leave your comments down below as always, and don't forget to like and share this video. And of course, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to go check out my Robbie and Brandon review video. We talked about our favorite Tony Hawk memories from the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. So yeah, thanks as always, guys, for watching and listening. I'm about to go check out some NXT and Cruiserweight Classic. So until then, this is Robbie Kenobi signing off. Everybody have a good day.